I didn't have my 7:01. We'll bring this meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any additions to the agenda at all? None? Declaration of ex parte contacts, conflict of interest, bias? I see none. Do we have any public comment today? Okay, I don't have to read the statement then. No public comment. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda. We have the December 2nd, 2024 City Council regular session minutes and resolution number 1124, accepting the abstract of election results from the November 5th, 2024 general election.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Councilor Patty.
Councilor Patty?
A move that we accept the consent agenda as presented to us.
Councilor Hort?
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
All those in favor?
Yeah, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 We don't have a presentation today, do we?
That's correct.
And no public hearing, so it's to general business. Wow, this is going to go fast. All right, this is resolution number 1125, appointing Brian Quigley as mayor for the remainder of the 2023 to 2026 term. And staff report.
In your packet is a resolution that is outlining the data that Brian Quigley was elected by the residents or the voters of Stayton, resigned and has asked to be reappointed because he has a clean bill of health, and our recommendation is to approve the resolution.
Is there any public comment at all? None. Council discussion on this? I think this might be quick.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Councilor Patty.
Councilor Patty?
Yeah, I stand by my earlier statement. Let's let him serve out his term, and let's keep this going. And yeah, looking forward to him coming back.
All right, do we have a decision? Councilor Rourke?
Councilor Simpson? Where am I? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 1125 as presented.
Seconded.
Motion's been approved and seconded. Is there any discussion before we take a vote? No.
Wait, when does this go into effect?
Immediately.
He's going to be sworn in next.
I know, I just wanted you to say it out loud.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. All right. So I think it's for the staff to swear in.
Yes, and we have Melanie swearing him in. And sorry, I just received a message from Councilor Giulio, and he's going to be here in about 10 minutes. So, now Mayor Brian Quigley.
All right, let's do it. Round 2.0.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Brian Quigley,
I, Brian Quigley,
swear to support and uphold
swear to support and uphold
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
the state of Oregon,
the state of Oregon,
Stayton City Charter,
state city charter,
and general ordinances of the city of Stayton,
and general ordinances of the city of Stayton,
and to faithfully perform the duties
and to faithfully perform the duties
of the mayor of the office of mayor for the city of Stayton.
of the office of mayor for the city of Stayton.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you very much.
So now we will have Council President Mayor Pro Tem Steve Sims assume his original position, and newly reinstated Mayor Brian Quigley assume his old position.
Congrats. Hope the agenda's in here.
Oh,
Mr. Mayor.
surprise. Do you need-
Mr. Mayor.
How's it work?
I just want to say a big thank you to Council President Sims for all of his hard work and when stepping into your role and taking over for us and leading the council these past couple months.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Orton. I agree with that, and I don't think Councilor Sims understood the role of being council president when he volunteered for it last January. So, baptism by fire, right? So, thank you for doing that, Steve. Thank you for stepping forward and leading the council in my absence. I appreciate that, and I'm sure the community does as well. So, thank you very much. All right. Anybody else before I move on? Okay. That leads us to resolution number 1126, authorizing the construction contract to North San Diego Paving Company for the Riverfront Park South Parking Lot Project. And we'll do a staff report. Mr. Schmidt? Thanks, Michael.
Tonight I bring before you resolution number 1126, award of contract for the Riverfront Park South parking lot. The Riverfront Park South is mostly an unimproved area where residents can access the Santiam River and the Riverfront Park area. It's right near our water treatment plant. This project is to construct a paved parking lot to improve access to the Riverfront Park and the Santiam Park. Public Works prepared the construction plans and the specifications and bid packet for the improvement project. We advertised this in the Daily Journal of Commerce, and sealed bids were opened on December 5th. We had a total of 19 bidders submit bids for this project, which in all honesty is the most I have ever experienced here or anywhere for that matter. Our engineer's estimate was $149,132. The high bid on this project came in at $177,000, and the low bid by North Santiam Paving of $97,400 was our low bid, and a very responsive bid. So at this point, staff recommends the award of the Riverfront Park South Parking Lot Project to North Santiam Paving, excuse me, in the amount of $97,400 with resolution number 1126. Any
Thanks,
questions?
Michael. Is there any public comment? Okay. How about council discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor Sims.
I had one question. I liked everything I saw. I just, so as far as our ARPA grant, are we spending all the money that we received for the grant, or is there extra?
We will be. We have spent a bit already through the lights over by the library and the electrical, as well as some tree clearing and grubbing. We will have this, and then there will be additional funds expended. And do you want to explain kind of the conversation that you've had with the county?
So basically, I had a conversation with the county the day after we opened bids here, just to discuss with them that we would be able to get this project, excuse me, under contract before the end of the year, which was a requirement as part of this grant. Caught us a bit off by surprise, but we've managed to at least get to this point. We're confident North Santiam will come through and sign a contract before the end of the year. There is money left over in the budget for that grant, the ARPA grant. And according to the grant manager, now that we have this contract in place, any kind of a change order, say material is bad underneath, we need to excavate further, that will cost additional monies. That will be paid for just strictly through change orders via the contract. So being under contract allows us to access the rest of the funds that were not contracted today, but still remain available to the project until we finish.
So the short answer is we will spend all of the money that we have been given, either on this project or additional electrical and lights on the library project. So we will make sure that it is, that we don't leave any money on the table.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Anybody else? I do have a housekeeping question. On this bid list here, it says City of Stayton West Ida Sanitary Sewer Replacement Phase 2 project. Is that incorrect? Or is that part
sounds
of the
incorrect.
project?
Where did it say the?
On the bid tab, I
Yeah.
think that was an error.
Oh, the bid tab itself. Oh, yes, that is very incorrect. I fixed mine.
Okay, so for the record, that's not exactly what it is. And it is the actual bid process for the bid list for resolution number 1126.
So this bid tabulation is the lowest three bidders. We did not expand further on it, just due to the number of bids and the amount of staff time it would have taken to review all of them. In general, the top three bidders are the ones that are eligible to protest if they choose. So we stuck with those right now, verified they were responsive bidders, and provided a bid tabulation list with just those three bidders.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor,
Council Ort?
are you overseeing the project?
Yes.
Okay. How do we make sure that they do everything that we've asked in the bid?
So they're, by contract, required to follow our specifications.
Okay.
This is North Santiam Paving. They're very familiar with our specifications. We are also on site observing the work and documenting the work that they perform. If they fail to perform something, we will have them correct it to the specifications. So we are the one responsible party to make sure that they do satisfy the contract.
Okay. And then how do we make sure, I'm thinking about a very recent project where the design, there were flaws in the designs. So
Yes.
how do we mitigate that and make sure that that is not an issue
So
with this?
we
Because
will-
we're paving, we're making this parking lot, and I don't want it to turn into
A big bird
a big,
of sorts.
like, pool.
So we will run verification surveys before final product is actually placed on the ground, such as asphalt.
Okay.
So when the excavation is done and the gravel underneath is brought back up, we will take a survey of that just to make sure that everything still fits per the design, so.
And I'd like to, I guess, just interject. That is correct. As a reminder, we turned this around very quickly. We were told that it was impossible to do it this quickly. Michael and his team turned it around very, very quickly, and I am sure he is fairly certain that it is perfect. But I just want to kind of stress that there might be change orders, there might be changes that are necessary in the field because it was a very quick turnaround. And so I just don't want there to be, I don't want there to be concerns raised if there are change orders, because if there are some small errors or issues that need to be addressed, that is sort of what happens when you turn it around in about a week, which is absolutely impossible. So I just want to make that really clear so that council doesn't have expectations that that there won't be potentially some changes. But I know that they're committed to out in the field, being more diligent to make sure that those things are looked at and corrected in the field so that we don't have pools or puddles like another project. Yeah.
Anybody else?
I have a follow-up.
Council Ort, go ahead.
I think to that point, I guess my concern is when you look at like the significant difference between this one that we're choosing and then the two even the top two bids are, I guess the BlackRock is only 104,000, but it's just a concern to me. It kind of looks like an outlier when you're like, oh wait, like that says 97,000. It's way off from these other ones. So what is it that they can do for less? And I'm at this point, I'm almost expecting there to be change orders and there to be more money spent. Like that is almost a red flag to me. And I can't, this is not my job, so I can't say why, but it kind of stands out to me as like, why are you significantly less than others? And so I don't, like, it's one of those things like, is the project gonna?
So I'll respond a little bit, and then Michael can add on. We're required to give it to the lowest responsive bidder. So you check, are they a reputable firm? Are they licensed? Have they filled out everything correctly? And that said, bidders are going to bid for a variety of different reasons. They might have lower mobilization costs. They might be taking a cut just to make sure that their staff are employed through the winter. There's a variety of things. So I don't know that it's necessarily a huge red flag, but I'll let Michael speak to that a little bit more. And I know that you looked at the bid tabs and the numbers to make sure that there weren't any red flags, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
So we did review, and as I said, we did not dig through all 19 of the bids. We went through the top 3 bids. All 3 of the top 3 bids were relatively close to each other, in our opinion. Ranging from 97 to 104,000. That to us is a relatively close range of prices. Julia is correct. We are required, when we have a responsive bid from a responsive contractor, that we do award the bid to them. We can choose to throw all of the bids out and not award the bid at all and maybe re-advertise. In this situation, though, we will lose the funding for the project. We do have confidence in North Santiam Paving. They've a reputable firm. They've been here in Stayton, well, since their inception, so for quite some time. One of the things that we have discussed, and I've actually discussed with several contractors, this is a pretty small project. This is probably, in all honesty, about 2 weeks worth of work. It should go relatively fast. They have, from the time of contract until the end of June, to get the project done. We do, in our contract, require that once they start the work, that they complete, that they work through continuously until they finish. So we look at this as kind of early in the bidding season for next construction season. And this opens up basically a small window for them to drop this project into in between larger projects so that they can keep their crews and equipment operating. So in a sense, they will pay less or take less payment to get that kind of flexibility into their schedule to keep their equipment and labor operating. So a lot of different factors. I'm not saying that is the only, but overall we are confident, although a bit surprised how low those bids came in. But
one of the things that Michael and Ian reflected on after getting 19 bids and all, fairly close to the engineer's estimate, is that this is a really good time to bid because they're kind of going into the winter, and so that's something that we'll definitely factor in for future projects to make sure that we're taking advantage of the best time to bid these types of projects.
Anybody else? Okay. What would council like to do?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Patty?
Yeah, I move that we approve resolution number 1126 and award the contract for the Riverfront Park South Parking Lot project to North Santiam Paving Company in the amount of $97,400.
A second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 1126, authorizing the construction contract to North Santiam Paving Company for the Riverfront Park South Parking Lot project. Any further discussion? Is this a poll one, or can we just, it is. All right, Melanie, can you please poll the council?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant I didn't know what you meant by pull.
So there's no need to poll the council.
There's no need to pull the council.
All right. Any other further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. That leads us to ordinance number 1070, adopting biennial budgets, and Mr. Brand.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. James Brand, the city's finance director. This is the second consideration of Ordinance 1070, and this is adopting biennial budgets. We did make a couple changes to the ordinance itself. We made a change per the council discussion to change a word from may to shall in one of the whereases. So this would designate the budget committee meeting shall take place. Another requested change was adding the section 3 to the ordinance, and this states that the budget committee will review a budget status and have an opportunity to make changes. So this would require annual meetings, as we've been having now, and that mid-biennium meeting would certainly be longer than the quarterly updates that I've been providing, much more expansive than that, but much less than the 2 or 3 meetings that we normally have at a budget committee when budgets are adopted. So I would be providing you with the budget status, and that meeting would probably be around August 1st. So just from a standpoint, you probably want a whole year's data to look at the midway point. So in order to get that data and have some time to look at it, the meeting would probably take place around August 1st of those odd years. Also, we did solicit more responses from the Budget Committee, and we had just one, Mr. Hayes. So I kind of summarized what he had said there. He is in favor of a biennial budget if the Budget Committee meets annually and the budget is stuck to as close as possible. So with that, I would take any questions you might have.
Councilors?
Mr. Mayor.
Council Ort?
James, can you go over again, so on the years that we don't have the budget, but we have, that we're not doing the main budget, but we have the budget committee, if that committee wants to make changes, what are the parameters? I'm still kind of stuck on this, and this is my, this is the part that is like making me a little nauseous, honestly, is that I am concerned that that if there are changes that particular council wants to make, that they're not able to do that. So what will those changes, what will the council be able to do, the budget committee?
Yeah, so it's the same rules that would apply now. And the difference between the committee and just the council is if the change is more than 10% of a fund. So the council could make changes up to 9%, but not 10% by itself. If there was a change requested over 10%, the full committee has to meet. So the fact that the committee is meeting not at the creating a budget, but just meeting in between, they have the same authority they would at any other time. It's just we're requiring them to come together and to discuss the budget, and they can make changes if they want. So there are restrictions on what you can and can't do with funds. So if you have a particular question, I could try to answer it, but anything that's within budgeted amounts can be moved. There might be good reasons to do that. I might advise against it, like I've done in the past sometimes, moving from an unrestricted fund to a restricted fund, but basically you can make just about any change that you would want within those within the parameters that the state provides.
Mr. Mayor, follow up?
Councilor.
Okay, on that particular, so, I'm sorry, don't have a particular example, but we talked about the difference between unappropriated and contingency funds. And during the budget process, if we don't, see, this is where
Yeah.
it gets confusing, which is which, and where we have to put it in order to be able to use it.
Yeah, so unappropriated funds are not allowed to be used unless there is an emergency, and that's probably could be interpreted in different ways, but I think we pretty much understand, like acts of God or, a dire situation, or if there's additional revenue that's identified, like in a grant. So you could spend the money and get reimbursed later. So if there's unidentified revenue at the time the budget is put together, then you can move money from an unappropriated category to and appropriate that. So the contingency is separate from that. The contingency is a budgeted amount. It's available to be moved at any time by the council into a category like personal services or materials and services or capital outlay. That just starts the budget in a contingency line that's not a particular, you cannot spend out of the contingency. So if you want to access that money, you just move it to another area.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to get some examples of this. So let's say you were wanting to, okay, let's say pool funding or something like that. If you had budgeted a certain amount over that biennium, and you're like, we upon review want to now change this and direct this money that was appropriated for this funding now to streets or to something like that, is a change like that possible at that biannual meeting?
Yes. You can move from one fund to another, as long as it was budgeted in the first fund, like in a contingency. So you just can't touch the unappropriated
The
funds.
unappropriated.
And just to clarify, and I think you know this, but I just want to make sure I say this, unless it's restricted. So we couldn't use money from the bond, or the pool, park and pool bond, and
Yeah.
put it towards streets, but the general fund portion that was subsidizing, that could be moved other places.
No, that makes sense.
James, I have a question. What's the urgency in changing this?
There's really no urgency per se. It was something I was wanting to do for a while. I mentioned it early on as the last budget was being created. My single biggest reason, and there is no other reason for me to want to do this other than the amount of time that this will save city staff, not just in the finance department, but in the rest of the city as well. I roughly estimated about 1,000 hours would be saved, and that's the most highly compensated staff. Just our jobs were full-time 50 years ago, and the amount of work that's been added, just for various reasons, the obligations on our time continues to increase. So I've been trying to find more efficient ways for us to work, and recognizing that the state of Oregon has been doing biennial budgets for a long time now. And my experience working with the state for 14 years in the budget office, I'm confident that this can work well. It's still an adaptable budget. We do lose some flexibility, I'll grant you that. I served on a budget committee for the city of Turner for 10 years. And as a budget committee member, this isn't generally something that I would be excited about, because it does lose some of that flexibility, that closeness with the city. So meeting annually, I think, makes a lot of sense from that perspective. Staying close to the budget and being informed about what's going on.
Yeah. I guess my thought process is this aligns with the state level, right?
Yes.
And for me, that's taken away another characteristic of our community. There's no reason in my mind for us to do this right now, this time. We've already taken away home rule. Little incremental pieces are being chipped away at each of the cities. And I think this is just another way. So if the state's doing it, we should just do it. And I'm not sold on that, to be honest with you. We're not in part of PERS, are we? We have PERS retirement within the city?
The police officers are, but not the rest of the
That's
staff.
one of the recommendations, or one of the benefits, right, of biennial that aligns more with PERS, right? That's one of the arguments.
I'm not sure.
It's one of them.
I think it also aligns with grants and state funding.
Yeah. So you still have to manage, you can do the biennial budget, but you still have the departments managing to the year, correct? Managing their expenditures to the year?
With a biennial budget, you would manage it to a 2-year budget. We
So
would
how
still have to do an annual audit.
That's what I mean. So how are the department should still be managing for their each yearly budget, correct? To meet the biennial total?
I wouldn't say that. I would say you're managing to a 2-year budget. But from a perspective, we manage on a monthly basis because I meet with each director monthly to look over their numbers. So there's no hard deadline with that year. Another benefit is with the construction season is we don't have to try to force projects to end by June 30th or delay them until July 1st. This gives more flexibility in that construction season for us to take a breather because the accountants get crazy at June 30th at midnight when all of a sudden one clock has to stop and another starts. So it's kind of a stressor.
Is there a benefit to our credit score if we do this?
I can't think of an immediate impact to our credit score for this.
Those are my questions. I'm not opposed to it in the future. I just think we're rushing this a little bit, but that's just my 2 cents.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilor Giulio.
I just had a question. Do you know of cities in the area that have implemented a biannual budget?
I had a list of those last time. I do know that there is kind of a trend toward biennial budgets. More cities are moving that way. I'd estimate that about 20 to 25% of cities are on a biennial budget.
Lake Oswego, Hillsborough, Sandy, stuff like that. Portland, Vancouver.
I just wanted to make a note that if the city did not do a biennial budget now, it would be, I think James's recommendation is that we wouldn't do it next year. We'd wait for another 2 years because we want it to align with the state budget or the state biennium. Is that correct?
James hasn't thought about that too much, but I mean, the recommendation is that you align with the state. Ideally, you would, and that's part of why probably we're requesting it this year. If we were realigning with the state next year, I would wait until next year.
So this is for 25, 27?
Correct.
Yeah. I just, council's decision, I just think we should give it a little bit more discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giulio.
A question I have is there a certain deadline that we need to meet in order for this to have the biannual budget before 25, 27? Is that the beginning of the next, like, is that, yeah, I know you want it because you want to help. How are you going to prep the budget? I get that. So how close are we to that drop dead date?
The software developer will be working on this, I think, in 2 weeks, or maybe next week. Can't remember exactly. So they'll start doing the work. We have our budget kickoff meeting on January 7th for the department heads. So we're starting. We're getting there.
The other concern I have is I do think I know that this was mentioned last meeting that it does feel like it's kind of the role of the individual councils to make these decisions. As I've said, I don't think that, I think it's pretty hard to go back to an annual budget once you've gone into a biannual. And so I also know there's going to be a few changes to council, so trying to also make sure that we are able to hear some of those new members too, their thoughts. That's something that is important to me as well, because it does feel like a pretty substantive decision and one that is going to affect them a lot. So, yeah, that's another thought I had. I don't know if that was a question, actually. I'm sorry.
I guess I have one more question. What is the obligation of the Budget Committee members? Would it be 2 years then?
Their terms would change.
What is it now? I'm not sure. Is it 1? It's 4, right? Isn't it?
They're
4? 3?
They're 3 right now. They would change to 4. That's by state requirements. So there would be some adjustments to those to get them to align, because they try to have them cycling out on a regular pattern. So I have it mapped out. We would, the next election cycle, I think it would be for a 1-year term, and then they would have to reapply, and then we would all be aligned just right, 4-year terms.
Looking at Leonard back there. I guess, to that point, what would be, and I don't know if we have asked the Budget Committee members, what's their interest in committing to 4 years? I mean, it's difficult now for us to find committee members across the board. I'm speculating, I know, I'm just a rhetorical question.
We haven't asked that question. About a year ago, we were looking for 3 members, I believe, and we were able to get them thanks to your hard work out there. And
If there's any questions to me, I'll answer.
I'm good.
Just let you know.
Thank you, Leonard. All right, council, anything else? Any more further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Council Giglio.
You said we're out on discussion now?
Still.
Or
sorry.
are we in questions still?
Sorry.
No worries.
How about, yeah, we're on, yes. So we didn't have any public comment, correct? Okay, we don't. Council discussion. Oh, Leonard, you raising your hand?
Sure.
Come on up then. So I'm sorry. James, were you done with your report?
Yes.
Okay. Public comment. Yeah.
Len Hayes, Stayton.
Sure.
First, I want to say he did a great job. I mean, he sent me a beautiful email, and he was very, very, very explicit on the time. I already said my name.
Oh.
I did. Yes. Leonard Hayes. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Leonard.
Okay. And he was very explicit in the amount of hours. So that was probably the one that maybe made me understand it more. Even though, admittedly, I kind of believe in the once-a-year things that helps keep things, everybody's eye on the ball. Also, anybody who's on the Budget Committee, I guess should keep it fresh in their head, even though I seem to be the one that shows up most here to kind of listen and keep an eye on, well, not necessarily where the money's going, but if something comes up, I'm aware of it immediately instead of getting it secondhand in an email or something to that sort of effect. So I'm defending him in the fact that he said 1,000 hours. Yeah, is there any way to bring that down? Okay, if we stick to 1. Okay, otherwise, what I'm saying is I don't have a problem doing it every 2 years, but my meaning when I say keep your eye on the ball or let us know when there's a problem, let us know right away in case we need to meet up again. Now, that's probably the bigger question for the rest of the Budget Committee. Who's willing to go show up at an emergency one or giving them enough notice, or are you going to have one going, why are you bothering me? I already went. I don't know. I can't speak for the rest of the committee. I just know I committed to it no matter what was going to come my way. So that's the only statement I really have. Do you have any questions for me in any regard?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Gilliam.
Yeah, I have one question. I know this is public comment, so I know questions aren't necessarily. I just wanted to clarify because you said, I feel like you said maybe both things. So do you prefer annual or do you prefer biannual, would you say?
I prefer annual, but I'm defending his position. I mean, because I understand what he meant by the hours. When he mentioned the hours, I to a point, I thought it was ridiculous. It's like, really? It takes that much time to get a budget committee meeting for, what are we here, 4 days? To do it and get it ready and get it approved. And I mean, I know all the binders, all the paperwork, all the this, all the that. How many grants did we get this time? How many are we putting in for? And all that. It does surprise me it takes 1,000 hours to really put that all together. So then my question is it easier for them to get ready for a 2-year one than a 1 year? Gotcha. I'm assuming by what I got from him, the answer is yes to that. Whether it's the 100% right thing and will the budget committee agree with him completely, I don't know that one.
Gotcha. Thanks, Leonard.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I failed to, you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to, I guess, comment, explain a little bit more about the 1,000 hours. And at the end of the day, and James may kick me, it's the council's decision. You do what you want. We were talking internally and just sort of in jest, and I don't even remember what specific project we were talking about, oh yeah, if we did the biennial budget, we could do this project next year because we'll have the time to do it. And it was, I don't remember, it was like a outreach something or another. So there is a lot of staff time that goes into it. You think about every director that spends hours upon hours of preparing their budget, reviewing their budget, explaining it to me, explaining it to James, staff checking, going into the budget document, going into the budget presentation, and then the meetings themselves. It's, we want to get it right, and we want what you see to be thoroughly vetted, and so it does take a lot of time behind the scenes that isn't seen, that could be utilized elsewhere, could be utilized. It's not just, oh, we're busy and we don't want to do more work. We will have the opportunity to do different work with that.
Okay, thank you. Fellow council members reminded me that we have a councilor-elect in the audience, and so, Mr. Carey, did you want to opine? So now's your chance.
Oh, we're okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah. No, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on then. Let's move to council discussion. Councilor Patty, looks like you're ready to go.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate everybody kind of weighing in and hearing thoughts on this again. I feel like we've had a couple different conversations about this now. Initially, last meeting when we had this presented before us, my big concern, was just to ensure that the budget committee did meet annually, and it wasn't like a, hey, maybe get together. No, we're doing that. That's happening, and for future councils. And my other concern was that this removed our ability to make changes. At this point, I feel like, given the compromise of the 1,000 hours of staff time, this is something I'm willing to move forward on personally as an individual counselor. I just want to say thank you to staff for working through this and taking the time to kind of explain to us this and explaining the cost savings, and then also taking the time to reach out to budget committee like we asked. I really appreciate that. Good job on that.
Councilor Sims.
I thought about this quite a bit, but I'm all about process efficiency. Engineer, my whole life, there was never enough time to get all your tasks done, and I was always trying to look for ways to lighten the load a little bit so you can tackle other tasks. So I definitely am in favor of doing this because of that. I think the measures are in place if we want to make changes to the, at an annual, after the first year, annually, with what we put in the wording for this, the verbiage. So I really do think we can make the changes if necessary to our budget, and we're still going to meet. I do like meeting annually, but I am definitely in favor of the biannual budget myself.
Mr. Mayor?
Council Ort?
Okay, so I know that I was the one that made the addendum to the ordinance and what we had here, and I've been giving this a lot of thought. I like the idea. I like the idea for all of the positive reasons, but I keep going back to what is our role and what is our job on the council, and our main role is to be good stewards of the community's money, and that is our biggest role, and that really does steer. You know, you put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. What's important to you, that's where you put your money, and because of that, I just keep going back to this. I really feel like we need to meet, and we need to do this every year. I understand that the cost savings, but what we're giving up for convenience is our power as the council. And for that reason, I'm going to be a no.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio?
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with Councilor Ort. I think that for me, I can see the positives, and I definitely understand why someone might vote a different way on this. But for me, I think having a direct, thorough, full process each year, I think, is going to keep the voters closer to the process in terms of making sure that, that every year we have an opportunity to direct the funds of the government and make substantive changes, and if need be. And I understand that is still there under this, but I think that it's going to be a more thorough process, and one that I think is going to be more start to finish under an annual cycle. I also am not a fan. I am very wary of the conservative, over-conservative budgeting that I think can come from biannual budgets. I think about projections that we already see in annual budget cycles, and they're always dire. I mean, in many cases, you have next year we're not going to have money, and then the 2 years we're going to be all out of money, and 3 years we're going to be really all out of money. And usually because changes in spending and because of changes in revenue, those don't quite usually, in my opinion, come to fruition. And so I would be afraid and concerned about over-conservative budgets, which would mean that we're not going to be able to spend the money as efficiently and quickly as possible to be able to complete to be able to get the money out the door as fast as we can. And every year that goes by where we don't get money out the door, we're actually losing, I think, the value of that money and the value of why people are paying into programs. So that's, to me, the reason. And I think I'm going to stay a no on this.
Okay, thank you. So this one, I probably need to pull the council, correct? There you go.
That is correct.
I didn't forget everything, folks. All right. So is that end of the discussion? No?
And there has not been a motion or a second.
Gotcha. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm on the... Ben?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, real quick. I don't know how comfortable I feel being the tiebreaker at this point, seeing as I'm not going to be here. However, I do have a mind, much like Councilor Sims, in that process efficiency is right up my alley. It's kind of what I do every day in my day job, my day-to-day life. I'm all about finding ways to eliminate processes that don't add value. Not that I don't think the budget process adds value, but I think that when you have good employees and you have a good staff and you have trust in that staff, it is more valuable to find better uses of their time. I liken it to, the annual performance reviews that I have to do for my employees every year. I have 2 of my employees that have been there for over a decade, and every performance review is good because they do their jobs, and I know they're good at their jobs, and I don't have to tell them that they're good at their jobs. And so if you could tell me that I didn't have to do my performance reviews for them every year, I wouldn't. I would just find better uses for my time. So Because of that, I understand the concerns. I also don't really, think that future councils won't have the ability to reverse this when the time comes. And I think delaying trying this out doesn't really make a lot of sense. We're going to have new counselors every year, almost. At this point, we're kind of at this pattern where we're replacing one or two almost every election cycle, and so, you're going to have that argument every election cycle. And I think it's just nothing's really going to change, from now to 2 years from now. The same arguments are going to be made, and the same, pros and cons are going to be there. That's why I think there's no real reason to wait. So for that reason, I'm going to be supportive of staff's request and be a yes on this.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain motions.
Mr. Mayor, one more thing, if I may.
Go ahead, Councilor Patty.
Yeah, I just I sense that we may be nearing a split decision on this, and with that, I really want that this outcome. I want this outcome to be tempered with some of the wisdom that's been shared by some of the opposing counselors' point of view here. And what I mean by that is, if staff began to sense that this budgeting process is leading to ultra-conservative issues like Councilor Giglio mentioned, or I and my other counselors, start to sense that the voters are having their power removed by changing this process, I want that brought forward, and I want to go back and change this, because that absolutely is something we have the ability to do, and I don't want either of those two concerns to come ripe in this. And so, with that, obviously, I've made my position clear here, but I just would like to temper this decision and this outcome with that feedback.
So noted. With that, I'll entertain motions.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 1070 as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 1070, adopting biennial budgets. Any further discussion? Melanie, will you pull the council, please?
Counselor Sims,
Yes.
Counselor McDonald,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Ort,
No.
Counselor Giglio.
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Thank you. All right. Communication from city staff. Julia?
Yes, I have a few things. First, I just wanted, it's actually not very common that we have a split vote, and so it's sort of unique. And I just want to, I guess, reiterate what Councilor Patty said, that if council feels like things are going in a bad direction, that's where the communication with me comes in. And I think we are all very committed to implementing what council wants to see and see done, and that's what the goal setting is for, and that's what the regular check-ins and meetings are for. So, I know there were some no's, but hopefully there's the trust that we're going to go forward over the next year or two or longer. And if things aren't working, we will make adjustments. So I just wanted to say that. I do have some other announcements, but I want to start with our recognition of Councilor McDonald and his final evening. And I'm sure that councilors will probably say kind and wonderful things in your announcements, but if you wanted to do that now, that would be a perfectly fine time as well. So we've got a certificate for you, and thank you so much, Councilor McDonald. I don't know if you guys want to wait or if you want me to continue with, I've got some other announcements, or we can.
Why don't you do your other announcements,
Okay.
and we'll circle back.
Okay. So he gets more of that. So I also, again, I'm trying to start having updates on what's happening at different boards and commissions as we're going forward. The Parks Board met on December 3rd. They made a recommendation that the city establish a policy that requires a tree to be replaced when one is removed in parks and street trees. They're also working on a list of recommendations for the staff and council, which will be shared at a later date and through the budget process, actually. And they are discussing a possible tree planting project in February and March. I also had a question, from Councilor Sims about the pedestrian grant that we applied for at 3rd and Fern Ridge, and checked this evening, and it sounds like it will be announced next month. The committee is meeting January 16th, so I'm guessing that we will know then whether or not because I think that's where they're going to be approving the recommendations. So hopefully by the middle of next month, we'll know whether or not we have received the funds or not. And then I would like to invite Sergeant Butler to come up, I believe. He's going to do a demonstration for you. If you recall, oh, and Chief Johns, I thought you were going to sneak out after. So they're going to do a demonstration of the NARC Ranger, which is a new tool that the department received a grant to purchase. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I'm Dean Butler, Sergeant with the Stayton Police Department. Over the course of many years, drug testing has...
I'm sorry, Sergeant Butler, we're going to want to have you on microphone. So all the people at home can hear what you have to say and not just us.
All right. So again, I'm Sergeant Butler, Stayton Police Department. Over the course of years, testing of drugs has changed drastically over the years, and with that, one of the problems that we have had with testing drugs is it requires the officer to take a percentage of the drug out of the packet and put it in a NIC test kit, crush the ampules, which occasionally will puncture the plastic that it's in, and then they have to shake it and take some time. In July, we had an opportunity to test a NARC Ranger, which is supported by Oak Chemical down in California. They're a chemical lab. And the officer, as long as it's a powder, liquid, or solid, and it is in a clear container, whether it's a plastic baggie like this or a glass jar, all the officer simply has to do is put it on a little sensor here, put the cover on it, and start the test. So what this will do is, like I said, whether it's a powder, a liquid, or a solid, it uses a laser to measure the vibration of the molecules. And it's a technique that has been around for a very long time. While this comes in various sizes, from small ones that are $25,000 to $30,000, we were able to get this with the grant, and since we helped test it for them, along with other agencies in the state, we got this unit for $5,000. A grant was written to CIS, who saw the risk reduction with this, not having the officer having to handle the material. With fentanyl, most of your drugs can be either absorbed, inhaled, or injected. So by limiting the amount of touching of it, it really reduces the risk of exposure to officers. So as this is testing here, and I was hoping it'd be done by the time I was almost done. About 80%. About 80%. What it gives the officer is the very last page that I handed out is actually the result that it gives the officer. And for this testing purposes and calibration, we use acetaminophen, which is a generic Tylenol. And so this lets the officer know whether it's cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, fentanyl, unless it's a fentanyl mix. Also, if we come up with something that's inconclusive from this machine, the officer can request the lab do an analysis on it, and it'll send the results right to Farmers Oak Lab, and they will actually send us back a report. So because of all the different chemicals that are out there and narcotics that are out there, it's a learning process for this machine and for the network. So this is tied into the network with every other NARC Ranger unit out there. So, any questions?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty. Yeah, thank you, Sergeant Butler. I was just kind of curious about this a little bit more. So it sounds like this is a newer technology. Has any case law been established around these things yet?
So it's an old technology. They used to have them in, like if you used, like I majored in analytical chemistry at Chemeketa. There were big machines in there. Just with technology, the machine has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. It's been used in the chemical world, you know, in research for a very long time. There are smaller ones, but like I said, the smaller ones are 25 to 30,000. So, and here again, it came up with acetaminophen. And so what the officer can do is, once he gets that, he can print the result. He can put a receipt like this right in the evidence bag so that the evidence tech knows what it is. It gives them an opportunity to place notes. And like I say, if it comes back inconclusive, he can request expert review, and then they will send us a result.
Awesome. Thanks for explaining that. Do we anticipate buying any more of these?
I hope not. So this unit, you know, it's portable. We can take it pretty much anywhere if we do search warrants. You know, as we get back into more and more drug investigations, it gives us the opportunity, because of the size, to take it out in the field.
Councilor Sims.
Thank you.
Sergeant Butler, what was the range of drugs this covered again? I mean, is it all like Schedule I drugs, or?
So it has problems with mollies, with mixtures. So if you have a combination of drugs together, that's when we would send it off, and they'll have this back to us within 2 hours. So it's supported by Oak Chemistry down in California. So yeah, and it is learning. So anything that we come across, which we have come across things that were that it didn't know, and when they looked at this paperwork, so the blue is what the standard is for acetaminophen, and then the red is what our sample is, and where it met is how it determined what the drug was, or in this case. So,
Thanks, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sergeant Butler.
Yes.
Oh, okay, Chief Johns, did you have a, yeah, okay, go ahead.
So I just wanted to thank Sergeant Butler. Our staff does a great job in coming up and presenting ideas or things that they think are beneficial, and he took this on himself. He wrote the grant and he researched it, met with the company and got it all set up, did sample trial time, and so very appreciative of that. And other sergeants have worked on grants and getting us money as well for different things, so super appreciative. I did want to highlight a couple of cases that we had this week. I often talk about the great community engagement, and we had Shop with a Cop this weekend with 950 kids in the Marion County area, over 100 officers that shopped with them. Tonight, Sergeant Butler and I did the fire Santa parade before we came here, so always lots of fun. But we do go out and do law enforcement, and I wanted to highlight a couple cases from this week for a few reasons. So earlier in the week, we had a store that called in. The person that made the report did a fabulous job, gave us excellent description, was very timely in reporting it, gave us description, and I believe a plate on the vehicle, direction of travel. It involved a theft from a store. And our officers were able to quickly get the vehicle stopped, and then thanks to the descriptions and the statement given by the person that witnessed it, led us to be able to hold those people accountable, because 2 people were involved. The car had 3 people in it, and driver was impaired, arrested for Dewey and the theft. Passenger had an outstanding warrant. He had stayed in the car and not involved in the theft, but he got arrested. And the third person in the vehicle was also involved in the theft. So great report by the citizen. The trio was responsible for a full shopping cart of product being removed from the store, over $600 in theft. So again, just highlighting the good work of citizens, making reports timely, giving us good information, and then the good work of our officers, and the culmination of a good case. Within an hour of that, we had another it was actually an off-duty officer who witnessed a person they knew their jurisdiction had interest in, and our officers were able to get in there, quickly secure this person because he is high risk based on his background, based on flight risk, and he had multiple outstanding warrants. We had probable cause on a case. Salem had probable cause, and we found a gun in his car. So this was a person that was real important to get off the street. Butler reminds me, 2 guns in the car. So we are a very safe community. Most people, I would think, feel untouched by crime here, but we do have things that happen in our community, and so I'm proud that the average citizen feels untouched and feels we have a very safe community. I just highlight these things because our officers are out there encountering some of these kind of high-risk situations, but also it takes citizens to report that for us to go and take care of these things. The other one I was going to highlight, and I've talked about this before, and it's winter. Last Friday when we had the tree lighting, in our area we had a person who left an unoccupied vehicle with keys in it. It got stolen and ended up in our city. Kind of a high stress moment for me because it was during our tree lighting downtown. I knew we had a lot of people out and about. But because of some actions of Almsville officer and Stayton officer and spike strips being used, we were able to stop the vehicle, and it didn't come into our downtown, thankfully. But reminder to secure your vehicles, remove the keys, don't leave them running to get them warmed up, because unfortunately there's people that will take advantage of that situation. But thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Sergeant Butler. Can I make a request? Can I make a request?
Of
So
course.
all the stuff you just highlighted,
Yes.
can you start putting that on social media?
I can work at it.
I'm serious.
Yes.
If you
So-
do a comparison between your department, our department,
Yes.
and the other agencies surrounding us, they highlight exactly what you just described. And I think that goes a long way of really showcasing what you guys are doing. So if we could do that, I'd really like to see that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
We are working on I think we're still working on the details of kind of a monthly summary like that. That's a blog similar to what other cities do. So we are working on that. Go ahead,
Mr. Mayor. Is it all right if I just I just had a question for Chief Johns, just kind of related to that, which I think she may have partially answered the question, a concern I had. So during the tree lighting, I know that initially, at least in the summary of events that I had, there was going to be an officer who was seeing to that crosswalk. That is is the reason that officer wasn't there because of this situation?
We were there when we were asked to be there.
Okay.
But I think the schedule ended up a little bit different. So we were actually early to what we were asked to be there based on what the schedule was thought to be. So we still assisted for at least 45 minutes in getting people across and getting them back. I think what we also found is based on the dip of the road and the lighting in the area, reflection on the rainy pavement, headlights come in, it is a precarious intersection for sure.
So what time about were you there then? On that evening then?
It was a long, there's been a lot of things that happened in between. 5:30, yeah. And we were supposed to cross at 5:45, right?
They were supposed to cross at 5:30.
5:30?
From the library to cross at 5:30.
And what time did we?
So I guess I don't know that we learned some things.
Okay.
I think that there's some things that didn't go quite as planned going from the library to downtown. And I wasn't going to necessarily talk about this tonight, but we'll do things differently next year. I think it was an amazing event, but I think that I know after the walk through the library, I lost the counselors. The people had already started walking, and I don't know if you guys even walked before me or after me. I don't know quite what happened. So I think that we will likely do things very differently next year, and maybe actually split that up or not have people crossing that street at all.
Yeah.
I think it was a great event, but there was a little bit of craziness in that transition from one place to the other. And Jana wants to chime in too.
It was our first time, right?
Yeah.
Right. We had 300 people at the library. I think about 150 of them at least went downtown. It's important to remember that they all have moving feet and go at their own things. And for the library part, we stalled as long as possible for but I was starting to lose the crowd, and we started earlier than the intention of starting.
Gotcha.
But also we walked them really slow through the park to try to make up for that. But it's important to remember that it's our first time, right? And I hope that you'll have the same grace for that. For right now, part of my park lights aren't lit because hey, we're having a problem with it doesn't like water, right? And it's getting some moisture. And so I'm great when it's not raining, but I'm working on that. And all of that's a work in progress. So.
Yeah, no, I understand. So you're saying the officer came later than when we had started walking? Or did the officer come before we started walking?
I think that the officer came when the officer was told to come. People started walking earlier than that.
Okay.
And so, and again, I think we learned some lessons.
The reason that was highlighted for me was just because when I came back, there was a flare in the middle of the road. And I had no idea what it was, so I called the police. I was like, what is it? Why is there just a flare? And the reason the flare had been placed there was because of pedestrians, to alert people of pedestrians. But my thought is, if there's enough reason to have a flare in the road, it feels like there's enough reason to have a police officer stationed there. Because, for one, as a driver of vehicles, I've never thought of flares being something that's used for to alert for a pedestrian. I've only ever seen it used. Actually, it would alert my attention to the side of the road, which is where I would think that the obstacle or the accident may have been. And so it was just to me, it was such an odd thing to come back and see a flare there. It was just a weird experience to me. And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to give too much blame. I'm just saying it didn't, having not seen the officer when we were walking over and then coming back to see the flare, there was just a number of things that just didn't quite make sense to me as to this didn't quite make sense as is that a normal practice to use a flare to alert to pedestrians?
We actually had 3 officers there to help cross, and at one point we had 2 officers, one on either side, and we had takedown lights on the vehicle. And like I say, we were there at least 45 minutes, but based on the request was to get a large group across at one time. And then we knew there's people coming back across the same road, but at various different times, depending how much of the festival they were going to enjoy. So we had to make a decision based on, we had other calls, and this stolen vehicle was one of the calls. How do we highlight that there's something going on here? There weren't signs posted to say event or pedestrians, which is a learning point, I think. But also, flares generally denote something's going on outside the norm and a hazard. So the idea was, hopefully people will pay attention, they'll see something is different, and pay attention to whatever's going on in the roadway. So I don't think it denotes a pedestrian per se or a crash. It just denotes that there's possible something going on in the roadway that we should pay attention to.
Slow down for.
Slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks.
But since we're talking about the Christmas tree lighting, I guess I just want to say one more time what an amazing job Melanie did in pulling that all together, and Jana in her group for pulling the display at the library together. Both did an amazing job, and yes, there was a little bit of a weirdness between the two and how that happened, but it was a beautiful event, and thank you. Oh, it looks like John Mesa left, but the business owners downtown and the welcoming and the bell ringing and the kids that were trying to get on the stage while watching the Grinch be read. It was really a neat event. Again, I think lessons learned and some things will happen differently, but at the end of the day, there were a lot of kids that had a really fun night that night. So
Is that it?
that is all I have.
Sorry, I missed that. I was out of town. All right, this is an opportunity for communication from the mayor and council, and I think let me start with recognition for Mr. McDaniel. Ben, I think you had the misfortune of, if I would have put it that way, of walking in my footsteps when I decided to take another medical issue leave, and I appreciate you stepping forward and doing that. I really do. You know, it's been a long time with our relationship on the council, and I really admire your willingness to speak your mind and offer an alternative point of view in the minority. It goes a long way to make me think of sometimes when you're arguing your point, I thought, well, am I in the wrong? Am I looking at it wrong differently? What's an interesting perspective? So really, I truly admire you for doing what you did, for serving as long as you did, and you'll be missed in this, and I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sims.
I also want to say it has been an honor and a privilege serving with you, Ben. Really hate to see you go, but I know you've been a pretty busy person with those kids in sports and such, but it really has been an honor and privilege, and really liked working with you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that as well. It's been phenomenal working with you. You will be absolutely missed. Yeah, I've really appreciated. You always make me think and so deeply about the position that I'm holding, and you always we may not always agree, but I always respect how you've come to your decision and the way that you fight for your position, and it's just been phenomenal working with you, and you really have made this a better city, and so I want to thank you for your service.
Councilor Ort.
Mr. Mayor, I want to echo all that sentiment. I love being on this council with all of you, including you, Ben. I believe that we're all here because we care about our community, and I know that one of the reasons that you ran is for housing for the people that work at your company and companies like yours in the community. You saw a need and wanted to work towards building more housing for people, and it's really commendable coming here every day doing this, and I agree. I really appreciate when you speak, what you have to say. Even if we don't agree on something, I truly am listening, and you bring a point of view to the council. And when I look at each one of us, I see different people in the community represented. And so I really do appreciate your voice, because it does, bring that to the council. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Patty?
Hey, thanks. Yeah, Ben, I just wanted to say it's been a privilege to get to know you and serve alongside you. I can't tell you how many times I've come in here thinking that, okay, I've thought about this from every different angle, and then, at the very end, you get one question in that I'm like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. And it just flips the whole apple cart over, and I'm just like, wait a minute. And so I just want to say I appreciate you. People don't realize that, some people realize for sure, but these jobs, these gigs as counselors, it's pretty thankless, and you got to grow a thick skin sometimes. And I just want to say I appreciate you endeavoring to do that and making that sacrifice. And I realize your family and your wife have probably made some sacrifice for this, and so thank you to them too for making our process a little bit better. Appreciate you.
Well, thank all of you for those kind words. I didn't think I would get choked up at all, but it's coming up. It's coming up. I'll just say I've definitely enjoyed this job, and it is a job. It's a chore at times, but it's also a joy at times. I've definitely found a ton of value in learning how a city runs and how all the processes work, and being able to contribute my point of view and accomplish some goals that I had when I came on the council. I definitely have done that. But definitely my favorite part is interacting with and getting to know all of you for sure. And that definitely includes our former councilors, Paige and Chris, also, who aren't here, but I definitely value their time as well. And of course, the former mayor, Porter, may he rest in peace. But the people here are awesome. The staff have always, treated me with utmost respect and valued my opinion, and I definitely will miss that part of it. But I'm definitely will enjoy getting a little bit of my time back and getting to spend a little bit more time with my kids and rest of my family. So appreciate it all, and welcome to Ken Carey. Fill the seat. I know he'll do a great job.
Thanks, Ben.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add, do we have any, we might have some positions on some boards, or
I was just going to chime in and say that.
Or, we could always use past council or experience. The institutional knowledge should not be stored away like a treasure. You should give it away like a treasure. So if you ever want to come back and visit,
see if one of those budget spots opens up.
Yeah, if you ever want to do some public comments.
Planning Commission, Parks Board, Arts Commission.
You want us to know you're still there, just come and visit. 3 minutes, that's all. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
I feel like now's probably a good time. I have a little bit of a surprise announcement that I wanted to make. Some of you are aware, but over this last, really 2 weeks, really, I don't know, we started to have some conversations. I started to have some conversations with my wife and family, and I have decided that I'm going to step down from council after this meeting. And there's been a number of just increases in my responsibility in my ministry and job, and I have a third kid, and so, but I have absolutely loved working with you all. It's been such a joy, and I really love it. Everything actually what he said. I was like, that's just so true, so good. There's a person who lost by 12 votes, who I think is really worth considering to be appointed. Luke Bauer, I think he's phenomenal. I think he really loves this community, and is a small business owner and has a lot of values that I think, just a reflection in this community, and I would love for him to be considered. Ultimately, I just felt like now is probably the right time because I knew it was a good time for a new counselor to be integrated and to be onboarded and to get orientation and to be a part of goal setting. And I didn't want to be a part of that and then make the decision 6 months from now, right? And so, so I have absolutely loved working with you all. And but I think this is going to be my last time. So I know it's going to be my last time, not think. Yeah. You knew, okay? Yesterday, I was like.
Some things aren't official till they're official.
That's right, I know.
David, I appreciate your candidness. I appreciate your observation of the community and what it takes to do this position up here. It's not very easy, as you all know. The commitment is quite substantial at times. And so for that, I commend you in acknowledging your commitment to your family first. And so thank you for being on the council. Thank you for bringing a perspective that contributed to the discussion. And we will see what happens. But I will tell you that, yes, I will not thwart the will of the voters. And I think Luke is definitely someone to have a discussion with. 12 is really a hair-thin margin, right? I appreciate Luke's involvement, his willingness to step forward, and let me just have a conversation with him. But that's in my mind, that's the obvious choice and the first step. So,
not that you threw me.
You surprised.
I was surprised.
I did surprise you. I have to surprise somebody.
Yeah, thanks. I will say that this has been a crazy few council meetings. When we thought that we were going to be appointing Steve, Steve and I met with Luke to kind of discuss him being appointed to fill Steve's spot if Steve got appointed. And so and I actually just recently let him know, hey, Mayor Brian Quigley is coming back, and so we don't think that we'll be appointing you. And so now we'll be reaching out to say, hey, guess what? There's been another change. And so I certainly, Brian, would you like me to reach out to him to get a meeting set up?
sure, you can do that. Okay. I had sent him a text earlier in all fairness. So
okay.
I'm sorry to ruin your plan.
No, that's fine. Just loop me in, people.
Yeah.
Come on.
So is there any more bombshells before I go? Councilor Ort, got something to? Go ahead.
Well, now I don't know what I want to say. I really appreciate all of you guys on the council. This is probably my favorite, and I'm looking forward to our next adventure with our council. Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me cry. But I really have enjoyed serving with all of you, and Brian, to have you back when I said we can get the band back together, I really didn't mean that. I really do enjoy all of you. And David, I feel like you articulate a lot of things that I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I mean. So I really appreciate being able to have that back and forth with you, and I will miss that. And again, you are also welcome to join our boards and commissions and say your piece for your 3 minutes at council meetings, because I really do appreciate both of your thoughtfulness about our community. And what I really love about serving with all of you is your passion for what you bring to the table and to the community, because like Councilor Patty said, this is a very thankless job, and being able to do it with people who are passionate about the community reminds me why I'm doing this. So, thank you.
Councilor Sims.
Well, I got to say, I know we talked, but it was a real privilege serving with you, and I really value your opinion. You always came up with some questions like, wow, yeah, I didn't think of that. But no, I really, it's really been a privilege serving with you on the council, and we're going to miss you.
Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
Yeah, David, I mean, we've already talked and kind of spoken privately at length about this decision, and I just want to say, man, like, I see you, and I see the finite amount of time that you had to invest in this role, and I want to say I appreciate every moment of it that you poured in, because I feel like Stayton's better because of that. And so at any point, if you ever have any more of that time to give, we are here, man. Like the other counselor said, I just appreciate you so much, and I want to thank you for always speaking your mind, even when it probably felt a little uncomfortable. And I want to say I appreciate that, because sometimes, people don't have the courage to do that, especially when they first start in their first term. So thank you for doing it. Thank you for making our decisions better because of it, and you will be missed.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
David, we'll high five on the way out, but I think ditto what everybody else said. I definitely value your difference of opinion. I might have differed with you the most of anyone, but I know where you're coming from, and I know the feeling. I definitely think it's a good thing, however, for there to be some turnover on this council. I definitely, I wish that more people would get to experience this job and what it takes and learn how everything works, so that, and get some perspective on what it takes to run a city and the budget process and all that stuff. So there is a little bonus in that, and that we'll get somebody new, and somebody else will get the experience, and somebody else's extreme opinions will get tempered by the rest of the council, and like mine have, I'm sure. So in that it's good news, right? So good luck.
All right. Julie, you have a pen? All right. I'm going to need a little grace here because I've been gone for 4 months. It's all been stewing. Yes.
I don't even know at this point what's happening.
A couple questions. So let me start off with this. At a meeting with a resident from the community, she came here and she expressed her surprise and alternately her dismay at getting an increase in a fee or a tax from the city. And she didn't know where it was or anything until she received it in her bill. Mm-hmm. That citizen was Polly Greaves. Do you remember that meeting when she came here? And during that meeting, I asked if we could put on the agenda a notice that something to the effect of this council meeting may result in an increase in fees and or taxes. I would like that to be put in place going forward in January, please, because it's the same thing I saw recently about someone opining about the street fee going up to $10 or whatever it is now. So I just want to make sure that we have transparency, that people are aware to the utmost degree when there's potentially a tax and or increase coming their way. And so this would give them exposure about the agenda when they look at it real quick. If it's like at the top or wherever you might want to put it, just so it's bold, so it's noticed, and so we can see if we can get more people in here to give us feedback, and so they're not surprised when that hits their bill. Everybody okay with that? No? Okay. The second piece, and I don't want to put words in Councilor Ort's mouth, but I think I understand a little bit what she was talking about when it came to the bid for the park, or for the pavement. And I need to ask, where are we at with the Public Works Director?
We have not advertised as of yet. We are working with a consultant that will be, that's sort of helping us do an assessment of the current department, and will be helping us as we do a search of the new Public Works Director.
Okay, and would you agree that's a pretty vital position, department head?
Of course, yes.
And would you agree we probably should have had an interim director?
No.
And why is that?
Well, this would probably be a really better conversation to maybe have offline,
Sure.
but there's a lot of involved. I think having an interim director, well, one, we couldn't find one for a long time, and there was a lot of things going on within the department that would have made it very difficult for them to do what needed to be done.
Okay.
So
This, in my mind, is a very project-heavy department, right? To your words. And in the past, we've been told, and the council was approached last budget cycle to hire a civil engineer because of the workload, right? And so we, as a council on the budget committee, approved that, and that position's still not filled.
That's
right?
correct, yes.
And so, in my mind, here we are starting the street project thing and increasing the rates for everybody to try to keep generating revenue. And that revenue is going to generate to whatever point, but what is being done to make sure that the projects are on track and/or the new ones are identified by council?
So again, we could meet and we could walk through all of these things that have been occurring, in front of and behind the scenes. We have been working on identifying those projects, and actually the council adopted a pretty comprehensive street funding strategy that identified those next projects. We are working with consultants. Our staff is working their butts off to make sure projects have not slowed down really at all. And so I am stepping up a lot more than I would have, I would like to. And the engineering staff is stepping up, and we're working with consultants that are helping us keep everything on track.
Okay. I guess why I'm asking those questions is because of the tangible results of the street repavement that was done this summer, right? So we have a lake sitting out there, and we have the drain, which is like 12 inches away from the lake. I have to question who was oversight of that and how that happened. And I heard various things that people had design flaws or et cetera, et cetera. And then if you look at the discussions about Ida Street itself and that project, people are continuously talking about that. I guess what I'm telling you is we're drawing unnecessary attention to ourselves, are we? And I have a problem with that. If that's what we're doing, the community expects more than that. If it's an issue about communication, we need to do a better job in communicating with it.
Okay. I would really like to have those conversations where I'm not throwing people under the bus in public.
I'm not asking you to throw people on your bus.
Well,
what I'm asking
in
is,
order to respond to some of that.
that's fine. What I'm asking you, is there a timeline to fill the Public Works Director position?
We are planning on going out at the beginning of this year. So early January, we're hoping to start the recruitment.
Okay. I think that's enough for now. With that, anybody else?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilor Giglio.
And I know that I'm not going to be on council, so that's okay. But I'm just going to use this as a suggestion, and I know it's probably something that you may have already considered, but when you were just saying, because I had not thought about what you said, because now that I'm remembering that conversation, you did talk about sending out that notice before potential changes to taxes or fees. And that does, to me, really send some blinking lights to me, where I'm like, man, that was the way that final fee change was passed without that notice. I do feel like I would like that to be reconsidered after a notice is sent. And so I don't have the ability to recall that. I know the mayor, I think, does have the ability to bring that back up for consideration. But I would like that to be considered to be reconsidered after there is a notice that's been sent to voters, because I do think that is a fee change and is going to affect people's taxes and fees. And I think that falls right into that category. And I think it was a very recent change. And so that would be my suggestion, is that is brought back up for consideration, just because I don't think that notice was sent. And I think that things like that should be noticed really, really well. Because I do think it probably affects people more than most things. And it did come after there was a survey that was done where I think only 20 or 30% of people supported a fee change. That would just be my suggestion.
So, and if I may, I don't recall the direction. If it was, we'll absolutely proceed with that, that it was a send notice to all the voters, but we absolutely have started doing here's what's on the agenda and out on social media so people can see that, and I believe that we did say specifically that there was going to be a discussion of amending the fee schedule to increase the street fee. So we may not have done as thoroughly as desired, but it was not done. We've been trying really hard to get out what's being discussed at council so that people are aware of what's being discussed on the agenda so that they can decide whether or not they wanted to participate.
Okay. One more thing. Can you maybe elaborate on this? And I'm just getting bits and pieces, so just make sure you can fill me in. Is there some issue with vendors having to get a permit and/or pay for the use of the sidewalk, like the restaurants and whatnot?
So I can speak a little bit about that. Yes, back in 2020 or 2021, the council approved code and a fee for usage of the sidewalk for outdoor seating. That, my guess is, it was during COVID and that wasn't enforced. James, in looking at the code and looking at, where, making sure that we're implementing things, realized that that was a charge that we were not getting, and basically sent letters out to businesses. And so I think we sort of backed away a little bit because it came out a little bit less friendly than it needed to, or it was intended to. But that is in the code now. If the council wants to change that code, you're more than welcome to, but we were just applying that portion of the code.
Okay.
And the fee.
Is that the same as the occupancy tax? Is that why the occupancy tax increase changed, or is that just something you started reinforcing again, or collecting?
I think that what you're referring to on that is that there were, are you talking about the
transient transient tax,
lodging tax? I believe that was just, there were some people that we knew weren't paying that, and so we were following up with that. And I don't know if James wanted to speak more to that.
It's something I got feedback on. I'd like to maybe look at that in the future, a little closer. I think there's some question about percentages.
If council wants to look at the transient lodging tax or any of the fees or fee structures, absolutely, that's something we can add to the agenda.
I guess what I'm going here is I don't want the residents to be surprised and/or have an aggressive collection. That's something we hadn't done before. I want to make sure we're communicating correctly. Okay, that's what I got for now. I appreciate you all putting faith in me again and letting me come back up here and vent for a minute, but I'm looking forward to carrying things forward and making some progress. So with that, adjourned.
Yes.